Right, so let's get into it. When you first launch SketchUp Pro, you're going to see this welcome screen. There's a bunch of templates, and the one that we normally use is architectural with millimeters. Okay, so we're going to click on that and it will launch the application using that template, and this is what you're going to see. Okay, so I've got a little update there. I can ignore that. We've got the default tray, we've got some tools, and this is the 3D space that we're going to work in. SketchUp always has a figure inside of your project, which is useful for scale. So if you're modeling something small or big, you've got a good idea of how small or how big it is based on this scale figure, which is 1:1. Okay, so first thing, we're going to modify the user interface here, okay, because we've got these tools, but we have some different options that we can choose. So we can go to View in the menu, choose Toolbars, and you will see the Toolbars window, and in here we can see that Getting Started is ticked, and that is the set of tools along the top. The one that I would recommend you normally have open is the large tool set. Okay, so there it is, and that's got a few more tools for you to access. Okay, so I'm going to turn off Getting Started, and I'm going to leave on my large tool set, and that's the only change I'm going to make for now. Okay, so let's press close. Alright, so I'm just going to move that up a little bit. Okay, so the first tool that is selected is our select tool, and this is a good opportunity to talk about how we navigate around the space. Okay, so there is no doubt when we're working in 3D applications, you're going to need a 3-button mouse. Okay, so the middle mouse button is our mouse wheel, and we can press that, and it's really important for navigation. So if I hold the middle mouse button down and move around, you can see that I'm using the orbit tool. Okay, and the orbit tool is actually here, so you can use it with the left mouse button, but if you just press the middle mouse button there, straight away you're orbiting around. Okay, next one, if you hold the shift key and the middle mouse, you can then pan around your space, which is also very useful. And last one for the middle mouse right now is if we roll the middle mouse in and out, if we scroll in and out, we zoom in and we zoom out. Okay, so the middle mouse button is really important for navigation. Alright, so let's get into modeling something. Now I am going to talk about the pencil tool and the eraser tool, but before I do, I want to show you the rectangle tool. Okay, so the rectangle tool works like this. You will normally be drawing on the floor, and you can see if I click and then drag and click, I've created a rectangle in 3D space. Now that is just a 2D rectangle, but we have this special tool just here, which is the push-pull tool, and this was the unique selling point of SketchUp all those years ago. Okay, it made the extrusion of 3D objects really easy. So if you hover over the rectangle that we've just created, you can see that it highlights. If we click on that, we can click and drag up, and you can see that we have extruded this block shape from that 2D rectangle, which is really good. Alright, so we can go a step further than that. We can draw shapes on the face of this object, and we can extrude those as well. We might want to add a circle to this face, and we can extrude that as well using the push-pull tool, which is really good. The push-pull tool also lets us create void shapes. So let's have a look here. We've got the offset tool. This is good. If we click on the offset tool, we can click on the edge here, and I can create a shape based on the outside edge. So that's a circle. Let's click, and we're going to use the push-pull tool again, and this time I'm going to push-pull this tool so that it snaps all the way to the other edge. Now if I snap to the other side, you can see now if I orbit around, you can see there's a hole has been produced, a void, okay, and that has been done all with the push pull tool. Okay, so very useful. All right, so yeah, so we've got this circle tool, we've got the polygon tool, we can draw on the face, and we can continue extruding and modifying and changing. Let's just use that offset tool one more time. So let's create an offset there, and then use the push pull tool, and we'll create a hole going through that way. Okay, so it's a lot of fun. I recommend you just play with the with creating shapes and extruding them, and extruding those shapes off of the edges of things. We have the pencil tool as well, which we can use to draw lines. You can see that it will snap to the axis. So we've got the Z axis here, and we've got the X is the red and the Y is the green. Okay, so X, Y, Z, that's our 3 dimensions. And you can see that with the pencil tool you can draw lines at different angles. Okay, we can go diagonal there, and you can see that that's snapping, and we can continue to extrude those shapes, but this is all one complete object. And to prove that, I'm going to select it. If I click on one side, I select that one face, but if I triple click, actually if I double click, I select that face plus the outer edges. Okay, so the lines there, so the fill and the lines. But if I triple click, I select the whole object. We could press delete, and we could carry on making another object. So let's get another rectangle tool, and let's extrude this up, and let's create a wall type shape. Okay, so with this object I'm going to create a little archway, and I'm going to do that by using the pencil tool. I'm going to draw a line up to here, and I'm going to draw a line here, and then let's create an arc. So if I hover over here, you can see there's a 2-point arc. If I click here, and then if I drag it just right, it will snap so that the line is pretty much continuous. We have the eraser tool. So first time using the eraser tool, let's click on a line we don't want, and it deletes. And let's use that push pull tool again, click, highlight, drag to the opposite side, and you can see that that archway is cut through. Now if I wanted to draw another wall, if I use the pencil tool and extrude just from here, it's going to add to that shape, but I want flexibility with my model, and this is a good point to introduce you to making groups. You can make groups and components. We'll talk about components in another session, but groups is a good place to start. So if I get the select tool and triple click, I'm selecting every face and every edge of that object, and I'm going to right click and make group. Okay, so that will create a group for me, which means that if I draw off the edge of this, so say I draw a wall just here and then extrude along this way, so I've got another wall. This wall is in no way attached to this because this is a separate group, which means that I can move this freely without it being stuck to the other, which is good. Okay, so that's with that triple clicked, I'm going to right click and make that into a group as well. So say I wanted to make a floor here. Let's get the rectangle tool and draw a shape here, and this time I'll use the push pull and drag down a little bit, and I've got a floor. So I'm going to triple click and make that into a group as well. Okay, which means that it's a lot easier to move and rearrange within 3D space. Alright, so I'm going to orbit around here, and I'm going to move this wall into place. So I've got it selected with the selection tool. This is the move tool. Okay, so the move tool will snap to points and it will follow the axis, and you can see that I'm snapping to the point there, so I know it's exactly snapping to the edge of that wall. So your question probably is at this point, if you've got a group, how do you then continue to edit that shape? Well, it's all about being organized, and if we want to edit a group that we've created, so currently I have 3 groups going on here. If I want to edit the height of this wall, or say put a window in it, I need to double click to get inside of that wall. So double click and I'm inside. You can see everything else is grayed out a little bit. I can use the push pull tool, grab onto the top and snap it to that edge so it's the same size. Get the rectangle tool and let's put in a rectangle here. Again, use the push pull tool, snap to the other edge, and you can see that I've created a window. Once you've done that, double click outside and the group is secure once again. Alright, which is really good. Alright, so we've got different groups and that's really good organization. Let's have a quick look at we've looked at the move tool. We should look at the rotate tool. Okay, so I'm going to draw another block just here. I'm going to extrude that out just like so, and I'm going to turn this into a group as well. I'm going to be very organized, choose make group, and let's use the rotate tool. So the rotate tool creates this protractor which we can align to different edges or different points, and we can rotate. So you can see that the protractor at the moment is blue, which means that it's rotating on the Z axis. Okay, so if I snap it to that point in the blue and then choose the angle that I want to rotate, so I click and then drag around, and you can see that it's really easy to rotate our object and it will snap to the Z axis or other things. So we can click and you can see how easy it is to rotate that object. Now say you wanted to rotate on a different angle. If you hover, sometimes it will change. If you press the arrow keys or the cursor keys, that will change the position of the protractor as well. So say I want to rotate on the Y axis, I can click when it's green and then I can rotate it on the Y. Okay, so I can rotate the object just like so, which is really good. So the move tool, very straightforward, and the protractor, the rotate tool, very straightforward as well. Okay, so now let's have a look at something else. Let's delete that array, just that object from it. Let's talk about arrays. So I am going to create another shape just here. And arrays are things that we've used before in AutoCAD. So let's use the push pull tool again, make a small block, triple click, right click, and then choose make group. Okay, so we've got a group here. And I want to show you how easy it is to create an array inside of SketchUp. So we're going to use the move tool, and a really handy shortcut, if you click and start to move an object, and you can see how it's snapping on the Y axis, the green there. If I hold the control key, it will make a duplicate of that shape. Okay, so I now have 2. Now the shortcut here is if we press the asterisk on your keyboard and then you type a number, so say I press 5 and enter, you will see that it creates an array. Okay, so 5 more of that one copy, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's really good. Let's undo that. Another option we have with the move tool is if we move this object again on the Y, hold the control, and maybe we have a set distance, something like that. In this case, we can draw an array between those 2 points by pressing the slash, and if we do let's do 9 and enter, you can see that it creates those 8, but with the other copy 9 iterations of that one block, and creating arrays are very useful. So you can also that's pan, that's shift and the middle mouse. We can also create arrays in a radial form. So let's get yet another block, maybe a bit smaller this time, and I'm going to extrude this block up. I'm going to make it into a group just because I'm staying organized, and I want you guys to do the same. But you know, it would work if you didn't turn it into a group, but if they overlap then you might get some issues, and they might be stuck to each other, but you will experience that. I want you to explore and try that stuff out. So we've got this little block, it is a group, and we're going to use the rotate tool. So instead of rotating on the x-axis, I'm going to rotate on the z-axis, but I'm going to just hover over that point and move over away from the edge, and now I'm going to rotate just like this, so you can change the rotation point, which is really good. Alright, so I'm going to press Control as I do that, and you can see that it's making a copy. So the same shortcut works with the rotate tool, so that we can click and then we could say asterisk 9, enter, and you can see that it creates that radial array for us, which is really good. And the same thing will apply if we do if we create that center point, and then so let's click, let's try that again. So I'm going to click here, oh, let's press escape, get the rotate tool again. So start again. So we got the rotate tool, we're going to be going on the Z axis, click, and maybe I have to have it selected before. I want to create the iterations between with the radial array. So let's see if we can get that working. Okay, so we're going for the Z axis. Did I press it too soon there? There we go, just snapping. There we go. Okay, so let's press Control, and we'll put a copy of the block at 180 degrees rotation, and then we'll press let's press /10, enter. Okay, so now we've got 11 blocks in total, creating the array in a radial fashion, which is really good. Alright, so let's have a think about what else you need to know at this point. So another thing that we want to look at is the scale tool. Okay, the scale tool, let's have a look. Let's select this block and use the scale tool. The scale tool, you can see, adds these handles, these green handles around the edge, and if we select one of them, you can see that it scales the object up. If we grab one of these, you can see it scales it on the Z axis. Okay, so it's very easy to change the scale of different objects inside of SketchUp. Okay, so that's good. The scale tool works really well, and that's what we need to do if we're resizing objects. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about is the follow me tool, okay, which is only available in the larger tool set. It's not on the getting started tool set. So the follow me tool, what is this? So for this we're going to create two things, a path and a face that follows that path, and hopefully this will make sense as we go. So I'm going to use the pencil tool this time, and let's get a bit more space, so I'm panning around. Now I'm drawing a line on the y-axis and now on the z-axis and on the x-axis, and I'm going to press escape. Okay, so this orbit around, you can see the path that I've created. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is get a circle that is going to be on the y-axis, something like that. Okay, And the way that the follow me tool works is you click on it, you choose the face that you want to follow the path, and then you just hover over that path and it will create that shape that you want, which is really good. Now I think we can we could modify this. We could create some curves in here. Let's say I wonder, let's change this to the let's change this, maybe we do let's do a 2-point arc. So if I click here and click here, and you can see when it highlights in purple, that's a great fit. I can use the eraser, tidy up these lines. Let's do it again. So the 2-point arc, let's make one just there, and again use the eraser to tidy up those lines. And now let's use the follow me tool again. So I click on the face, go along, and you can see that it uses the arcs that I drew in there, so we end up with a much smoother looking shape. Okay, so we're getting some more interesting shapes here. That's really good. Something that's important to bear in mind is the color of our faces, because this darker blue represents a face that's the wrong way around. So I think we can reverse faces, and if we do that you can see that it's now white, and that's correct. Okay, we don't want to see the dark grey because that indicates that a face is the wrong way around. Now that's only that becomes much more important if we're doing something like 3D printing, okay, because you don't want any reversed faces. So you want all your faces to be white, and then you can apply materials, of course, in different colors and all that sort of stuff, but that sort of steely blue gray indicates that a face is the wrong way round, okay, which can happen especially when you're doing follow me. Now the follow me tool is very useful if we want to create more advanced shapes, and two advanced shapes that stand out to me are spheres, because there is not a sphere tool, and domes. Okay, so we're going to create those right now. So again, hold the shift key in the middle mouse, we're going to pan across. I'm going to get my pencil tool and I'm going to draw in the Z axis a nice tall line, something like that, and we're going to start by creating a sphere. Okay, so I want to draw this sphere on this line. I'm going to use the X axis, something like that. And to draw a sphere you need a path that is circular, something like this. Okay, we only need a semicircle, so I'm going to get rid of this line here, and we don't need this line or this line either. Okay, so this time when we do the follow me tool, we click on this face and then we go around this circle all the way until we complete our sphere, which is really good. Alright, so now we have a sphere. Okay, it's the follow me tool that allowed us to create our sphere, which is good. Let's create a dome now. So we'll use the same technique, use the pencil tool, we'll draw in the Z direction, and I'm going to use the arc tool. So I'm going to click here and here and then draw a nice arc on the x-axis, and I'm going to use that offset tool again just to offset this line, and I'm going to do that a couple of times because I want a larger arc. Okay, and we need another circle at the bottom for it to follow. Okay, now that we've got that, we can just connect up this line and this line. Press escape when you want to draw another line. Okay, so we've completed that face. I'm going to delete this curve and delete that line. So this shape is going to follow around this path to create a dome. Alright, so let's use the follow me tool, click on the face, go around, all the way around until we've completed the shape. Oh, and you can see I didn't quite manage it, so let's go from a different angle all the way around, and there is our dome. Okay, and that's really good. So now that we've got the dome, we don't need this circle anymore, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to turn these into groups as well. Okay, so I'm going to triple click that, right click and choose make group, and I'm going to do the same thing here, triple click, right click, make group. Okay, so I have those two objects that I can move around. I can overlap them with other shapes and play with them in different ways. So let's scale this sphere up a little bit, make that a bit bigger, and I'm going to move this into position and overlap our objects a little bit. I'm going to go say about there and there, and then move that up, something like that. Okay, so you can see my sphere overlapping my dome, because one more thing that I want to show you is solid tools. Okay, this is something that's available in SketchUp Pro, and it's not available in the free online version. Okay, so we've got two groups here. So if I hold shift and click, I've got them both selected, and these solid tools are under tools, solid tools, and we've got several options, and these allow us to use the objects themselves to cut into, to trim, to join with other ones. So I'm going to try subtract, and you can see what's happened is the dome shape has cut through the sphere. So let's undo that. This time I'm going to select the sphere and then select the dome and then select the sphere. Let's see if we get the same result, and I can check which one to do in which order. So solid tools, subtract, again that's the same result. So I must make sure I select the cutting object first, then select the dome and go to solid tools and choose subtract, and we end up with this sort of object here. Okay, so you can use some objects to cut through other objects or to join with objects, and we have a lot of freedom in SketchUp to create all sorts of interesting shapes that you might want to use within the space that you are designing. So I think one last thing that I want to talk about before we move on is the measurements down here in the right hand corner. This is really important that you can see this. So if I use the rectangle tool, you can see measurements appearing in the bottom right corner of my screen, and this is really good because we can see that we've got 1509 by 969. So let's type in. So if I do 1500 comma 1000, it will draw that exact shape for me, which is really good. So we know that the size of this is exactly what I put in, and we can check that with the tape measure tool. So if I click on one corner, I can see that that's 1500. If I click from here to here, you can see that that's 1000. So we can be very accurate with the shapes that we're creating inside of SketchUp. And the other thing is the circles. As we know, the circles, they can have quite a a jagged edge. Okay, so a circle by default only has 24 edges. So let's have a look at what I'm talking about. I'm going to click and extrude, and it looks pretty smooth, but that's because it's added smooth shading here. If we go to view and hidden geometry, you can see the faces of this cylinder, okay, which is not very circular, you know, when if you've got 24 sides there, but it does save memory. So I'm going to turn off the hidden geometry, and a way around this is if you select the circle tool, you can see at the bottom of the screen it says 24 sides. So if we said 60, okay, and we draw another cylinder, what we're going to get is a lot smoother. Okay, and that only becomes apparent when you go to view hidden geometry, and you can see that we've got 60 sides in the circle rather than 24, which is going to give us something a lot rounder. So that's something to consider. So typing in information as you go, obviously you can do that with the push pull tool as well. So we can extrude out, and we could say extrude out by 2000, and you can see that it extrudes out exactly by that amount. So very functional, very creative application, lots of freedom, lots to explore. Okay, in the next part we're going to be importing plans for us to reference when we're drawing out the beginnings of our space.